Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Jungle, presented by Deserto, dGon, Dom, and Monty, to break down the big series that happened this week in the League of Legends world. We finally have our major regions done and dusted. An LCS champion has been crowned, as well as a repeat spring LPL champion coming out of the gauntlet. Let's start as we always do. How was your week, Dom?
It was good. Did a lot of co-streaming. Got to listen to Jizuke laugh for like 8 hours over the weekend, which is the cure to anything. Like if you ever are getting down and you need something to just bring you up, just listen to Jizuke's laugh. It'll do the trick for you.
You should do a Jizuke laugh soundboard for your stream.
That would actually be good. It'd be way better than like a laugh track, like a Jizuke laugh track. That would just be like, it's perfect, man. It's perfect.
And he has different ones too, because we played soccer together, and he has it's a range of them.
Yep.
Who's the better soccer player?
W sometimes.
Who's the better soccer player, dGon?
Oh, it's me by far.
Okay. Does Jizuke like take the ball to the opposite side of the field and like try and just run down the whole field by himself?
He tries to run it down. He took a couple of big swings, but he took a couple of big swings. We'll leave it there. Maybe he'll be coming back and playing some more esports soccer. Monty, how was your week, man?
It was fine. I watched some League of Legends. Yeah, it was delightful.
Great.
It's a lot different than we do it on
much
Facebook,
though.
by the way.
I was really I was really glad that both of the NA series were 3-0, so I could watch less NA League of Legends. That was my big takeaway. I was like, yes, another 3-0. Let's go.
That was the opposite. I was like, this is probably the highest my viewership's going to be for like a couple months. I was like, 15K view. You know what? We could go a 5-game series. Like, let's hope it's like 60-minute bangers and shit, and I can just milk this.
Instead, best finals in the history of the LCS. Unlucky. Jeez, that was just something. When they said it on the broadcast, I was like, "Oh no, are we about to get reverse swept?"
I was looking at it. Was like after game 2, and it was like 2:15 or something like that, and the opening ceremony started at 12:30. I was like, "Holy shit, this is going fast!"
Yep.
Yeah. It was going very fast. I was over at the stadium for the friends and fans that said hello and said all the nice things. Appreciate it. Our show appreciates it, and it was cool to get a dose of like the fans that
all the people who are too afraid to go talk shit to dGon to his face. Get some balls for next time, please.
Yeah. I'm down. I will say there was one person, bless his heart, came up and was just shaking. And like, I was like, he wanted me to sign something. And so I signed something. I look at it. It's something that has been signed over the last 7 years. I didn't check for your autograph, Tom, but it was a bag or a hat. I signed next to Dyrus's name, I think. It was like, that's cool. That's how long it's been. It was really cool. But if he was nervous and he was a nice guy, I can only imagine what all the guys that wanted to talk smack would be like. They're like, oh, dGon's a lot bigger in person.
You know what I miss most about going to live events is the random people who would just yell, "Fuck you, Monty," from the crowd. That gives me strength. That gives me ultimate.
What?
Yeah,
people would do that? Oh no.
I love that shit, man. I love that shit. It means I'm winning.
All right. I feel like you're making a call to action the next event we have, but I'll accept the first one. After that, it will hurt my feelings. But the first one, I'm gonna try to do what Monty does. Be like, yeah, we'll win. All right, let's dive into this week's series, and let's start over in the LPL. We had ourselves V5 and Top Esports playing on the bottom side of the bracket, and then Big Boss RNG waiting on the top side. It was V5 falling short here as the #1 seed, coming on into it yet again. Another #1 seed just can't get it done through the lower bracket. Fall short as Top Esports gets the victory. Let's dive into that series. Dom, what did you make of it as V5 won the first game and then couldn't figure it out after that?
I mean, both series went in similar ways where V5 just played they probably played the 2 best games of LPL playoffs in game 1 of the first time that they met, and then this game 1 as well, where they just play like super clean game 1s. Then the enemy team adapts to it, and no one is just helping Rookie. I mean, you're just having a pretty horrible series from Rich. I mean, this was just straight up classic Nong Shim Rich. Like, he gave us the full throwback to how he used to play over in Korea. I think we were getting too hyped on him. He was one of the better top laners throughout LPL over the course of the split. He's getting solo kills left and right. He seemed really on top of the meta. And then he just completely sprinted it for this entire series. So it was kind of sad to watch, especially from like the perspective of a Tian hater, as I am. Like, I hate to say it, but Tian was probably the best jungler in LPL, like, over the course of this playoffs. Like, this guy was just smurfing the entire fucking time. And I'm just there, just full on hater, just hater blood going just straight through my fucking veins, just waiting for him to fail. I'm like, oh no, he's gonna choke at some point. And then he just kept on doing well, like game after game after game after game. He was just the best early game jungler in LPL. And for people that don't know, the reason why a lot of like LPL fans don't believe in Tian is because he choked extremely hard in spring finals last year. In summer finals, he choked again, and then Worlds, like, everyone saw the FPX complete rundown where he was the one that was probably having the worst series out of everyone, running it down over and over again, like 7 games in a row. I think they got a tie break in there. 7 games in a row of Tian just fucking power inting. So as somebody who wants to see like some degree of LPL success, I mean, I just didn't want to see him, get through that.
I mean, there was an upside to Rich's performance, was that it baited Wayward into playing the Aurelia-Gnar matchup and then doing horribly on it in the next series, which then caused Tian to not go to international play. So there was an upside.
Yeah, just to cap off Rich's rough games 2 through 4, 2-7, 0-3, 1-10, to finish a grand total of 3-20 in the top lane. That is rough. That's how you know you're
the whole series.
I mean, I think there are more complaints that you have to issue here, though, because Rookie again faced the brutal gauntlet of mid lane bans, and clearly Rich wasn't the one who's going to be able to take up that gauntlet. But I have to say, I was just disappointed in the fact that V5, when they're on red side, like they're like saving a lot of potential picks for Rookie. Like they're like prioritizing support picks in the first round, or like before the second round of bans come out, when there are still often champions like LeBlanc that are available that could be picked. They're prioritizing like getting champions for PP God instead, which I think you don't try and minimize the damage that PP God can do, because he was like the worst player on this team throughout these playoffs. You should just be enabling Rookie, like at least get him something that he can be more active on and carry on within these games. And I felt like the strategy was wrong. I think they should have really been pushing for Rookie to get the picks that could make a difference instead of holding out for PP God, basically.
Almost very much like you're as strong as your weakest link, but then you're not accentuating your star player. Just falling short.
Yeah. It was a depressing way to see this team end, though. Like, this is the team that I would have preferred to have seen go to MSI overall. Like, I really just wanted to see Rookie versus Faker, which is, despite these being the 2 best mid laners of all time, a matchup that we've actually very rarely seen, which is just a depressing indictment of international competition in League of Legends, that I guess we're into like year 8 or 9 of these guys' combined careers, and we've almost never seen the matchup in history, and that fucking sucks. So I was hoping for that personally, purely because I want to see it.
Now, before we dive into our finals here between RNG and Top Esports, got to remind you to subscribe to the channel. We've hit 9,360 subs. We're almost at 10K. And once we hit that 10K mark, we should be catching up to Astralis, who just doesn't make good content. 11.7 thousand subs. We're right there. Make sure that we get better than the worst team in the LEC in terms of content and results. Actually, the worst team in the LEC.
And ownership.
Boom. Done.
Ownership. What else do we want to throw at them? Is there anything else to just criticize them on outside of just their whole existence?
Yeah,
their whole existence
and Jersey
worthy of criticism at this point in time.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
All right, now that we got the business out of the way, time for business in the finals, RNG and Top Esports. And you brought up the baiting of Wayward on the Aurelia to Gnar to start things off here as RNG won the first game. And then the rest of the series kind of goes back and forth, almost a reverse sweep here by Top, but it gets stopped there in the final game here, Dom.
Yeah, it was another series where you just have Tian just smurfing out of his mind. He's actually just fucking running LPL playoffs. This is like, he got really close to making me believe in him again. You know, if he ended up carrying this whole series and going to MSI, you know, maybe I would have been able to say something positive, but thank God RNG ended up winning. I thought that this series was one of the best series we've seen of Bin, period. I think this was maybe his best showing since he's joined RNG, and it just felt like he was super confident throughout the series. I mean, if you even look at the final game, when you go for the blind jacks,
that
pick,
was bold.
it's super bold, but that's like a Bin special. I mean, like there's a couple champions that he's been really historic on. Yeah, and one of them is Jax, and the other one is Camille. Camille is normally just permaban versus this guy. It is like 1-2-3 banned. I think it was 1-2-3 banned every single game of playoffs against him. If not, it was almost every single game of playoffs. This guy is just too insane on that champion.
That was actually you don't even want to banned in game 4, interestingly.
It wasn't banned in game 4? Interesting. Yeah, I mean...
Anyway, but yes, it was very frequently banned, yes. I noticed that as well.
It's banned almost every single game against this guy. Like, he is just too good at Camille. And essentially what teams end up doing is they try to just target Bin's like carry champions and force him to play the standard like weak side top lane role within a team comp. But generally, like this series, he was really good on the Gnar, and it got to the point where because he was doing so well, I felt like the team opened him up to like, okay, you're the one that's doing well on the day. It's game 5. What do you want to pick? Goes for the Jax blind, plays it into Gnar, ends up having a really good game on Jax overall. And I thought it was just nice to see Bin actually look comfortable in RNG, because he hasn't looked like the same player pretty much this entire year up until this point. It's always felt like he just wasn't able to carry quite hard enough. It just didn't feel like he was having the lane dominance that he had before. Because if you remember, like him at Worlds, I mean, he was one of the best top laners in the world when they actually ended up making it to finals. And then even last year, this guy was just all about the carry top lane meta, and he was just doing it without any help. So the idea of him joining RNG was that's perfect. Like RNG doesn't need to play around him. They could potentially start ganking bot, which they still never do. They could start playing around Ming and Gala, and Bin will just be able to play carry top laners and win 1v1 and absorb pressure from the enemy jungler, which we still hadn't seen up until games like 3 through 5 here. So yeah, I think it was just a good series overall from RNG. They still have the same fucking problems that they've had pretty much the entire split, which is their early game is just trash. I mean, they just don't have a good early game. Normally, some players will be able to do well enough like in lane to get them through it. So a lot of times you just see Gala and Ming performing well in the 2v2. And then for some reason, RNG just passed top like every fucking game. So they win bot 2v2, then they're just like forced to sit there and chill as they keep on getting like 3 and 4 manned, and then eventually like in team fights they end up outplaying people because they are still a really good team fighting team and they're really good around objectives. So that is pretty much what you have to watch out for at MSI for RNG. I could definitely see them losing to some teams that would be considered worse than them just because of their awful early games. But when it gets to like mid game and late game, I think that they're still one of the better teams in the world at closing out games.
I agree with you, Dom. I think where I struggle to see like even them getting upset is that for RNG, it requires a pretty good level of engage and coordination and mechanical plays in order for them to lose the early game, because they're not the ones usually who, at least in the playoffs that I've seen, they're not the ones, except for Wei sometimes, like when he's playing Volibear, will just run under a turret and die. But for the most part, it's mostly that other teams are playing aggressively. Like if you look at this series, you know, when Knight will roam at level 4 on Galio and make a play into the bot lane or something like that, right? And they'll come in with the Galio and then they'll, you know, flash stun on Viego from a very long way away. But it takes a lot of coordination and mechanical ability, I feel like, to make these plays in the first place. And I don't think the teams that are going to be attending MSI outside of T1 are really capable of engaging at the range or the precision or having the roam timings that we saw from top that actually abuses RNG in the early game. So I kind of feel like RNG is just going to get through a lot of these early games scot-free because they don't have these opponents that are really good at creating plays early. And run compositions that are capable of doing that. So I actually think it's kind of free for RNG because I think they're going to hit their late game status and not really be challenged early in the same way that they were challenged in the LPL playoffs.
Yeah, it definitely requires a lot of a lot of coordinated like 4-man plays that you see RNG normally falter to. You'll have like Wei clearing the wrong side of the map. And suddenly, Knight will just be porting on one of the sides and Tian will just be diving on a stacked wave, where I just feel like in general, Western teams have not become like really great at coordinating those dives.
That's what I'm saying. You could say RNG is weak early game, but I don't feel like they're losing to themselves a lot of the time, except occasionally Wei like running it. Like I feel like for the most part, they're being exploited because they are not reading the map state and that they are getting punished. But it's not a way that Western teams are going to be able to punish them because they don't make these plays.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I think that if Caps and Jankos are really playing well, I feel like maybe that's a situation where G2 could upset. I think EG, it's going to be really hard because the thing is that like RNG, the way that they play, they have like really fucking good laners, especially bot lane. I feel like Gala and Ming are just very good at 2v2. I mean, they played together a while now, and we even saw like EG in the final. I mean, EG in semifinals and finals, their bot lane got solo killed a lot.
Oh no, it was terrible. I mean, that's the thing about EG is they're not going to do well internationally. Unfortunately, like those kills that they took in the 2v2 were not snowballed properly, and they will be snowballed properly by good teams, and you will get owned. Like that Jinx is never coming online. That Jinx is going to be dove 12 times under a turret, and that Jinx is your only source of damage with 4 tanks or whatever, right? So it's going to be really challenging, I think, for EG to play if they don't shape up their laning.
Yeah. So I think that I mean, RNG is a team that I don't think people should sleep on, especially when it comes down to like what meta will end up surfacing at MSI, because if it's a meta that doesn't enable a lot of the early game junglers, I think that they could potentially end up being a dark horse to win the whole thing, especially because when you look at T1, they've been a team that has banked really heavily on the Lee Sin. Like they love Lee Sin. It's just one of their picks where if they get it, it feels like they're always going to win. It's one of Owner's best champions, but it's nerfed coming into the next patch, and we don't know what the meta is going to be. If it's a bunch of like these scaling junglers like Karthus and stuff, I don't know if that's going to work out well for the way that teams are going to need to play to punish RNG, because people forget about RNG. But when they won MSI, when they were the best team in the world, the reason they were the best team in the world was because they had the best setups on Baron and the best ways at playing around, the most decisiveness around objectives out of any other team in the world. Any other team in that tournament could not match up with them. They would know like, oh, we just killed a support. Does that mean that we're starting Baron and turning? Are we starting Baron and finishing? Are we just going to be able to like zone the jungler and, trade a death for the Baron? They were so good at coming up with like all these solutions to every single Baron problem. And, same thing goes for Drake. It's similar concepts. And I feel like now in LPL playoffs, they're starting to show the same thing. Last year in summer, they fell off a little bit in terms of just their ability to like understand the meta and realize like what the fine lines are in those situations that you're going to be able to read, that you're going to need to read to make the decision as to whether you can choose between the 3 different options that you have on the objective, whether it is baiting or burning it or zoning, like all those things. But now it feels like they're back on form, and with the types of champions that are going to be available in the meta, I think it could be really good for them to go internationally and play team fighting junglers and things like that, because Wei isn't a good early game jungler right now anyway. So why wouldn't you prefer to be playing a Karthus Wukong meta or like Rengar, these types of champions that are going to be like less aggressive in the early game? It's not like a Lee Sin or a Viego where you expect them to be doing a lot on the map. You can kind of just farm your jungle, cycle it, rely on your laners being good, and then just scale into the mid game.
Yeah, it's also true that, T1, for all their strengths, they do have a pretty predictable formula for how they play the games and how they play, like, the team compositions that they prefer. And so it's kind of an unknown as to what their adaptation to a different style of meta would be.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that scares me the most about RNG is that they throw literally like every single fucking game at Herald. Like, no matter what happens, it feels like as soon as the Herald situation starts, they're just going to lose it, right? Like, it doesn't matter if they start it, the enemy team starts it, if they've got numbers, like, for some reason, they will always lose the Herald situation. So that's where I start looking at them and I'm like, come on, guys. Like, sometimes, like, we have to at least luck our way into winning a Herald fight at some point. Like, just pure RNG, right? Like, maybe the Herald like knocks up somebody as you're engaging the fight and you end up like fighting a 6v5 because Herald's on your side. Something has to happen where you can actually win a Herald situation at some point, or just ignore it, you know, just be like, we suck at Herald fighting. They can take the Herald. We're going to take plates on the other side of the map. It's okay if they like get first turn or something. We just don't want to opt into ways that we can lose because we're so good at what we're good at.
There we go. Deep dive into RNG strengths, historical facts to back it up, and what we can expect as we get closer towards MSI, which is where we'll focus next. A little bit of MSI for you, because we had, after our, I guess, lower bracket finals game in the LCS, we had ourselves the draw without knowing who was going to be in, and also a little bit of news about MSI as well, which was, let's start there. The fact that this tournament is going to be played with a little bit of ping difference, and because the LPL squad would not be able to travel to Korea, the rationale is that the difference in ping between the two regions is small enough that if you inject the ping into the teams playing on LAN in Korea, it creates an equal playing ground for the LPL squad. And Monty, you felt very, very opinionated about this one.
Yeah, it's the whole premise is ridiculous. Why not just let T1 play from the T1 facility in Seoul instead of having to go to Busan in a country that has an overwhelming number of COVID cases at the current point in time? It sets a very bizarre precedent. There's also the fact that teams are, the leagues are prioritizing Asian games over the health of the international tournament circuit and their own leagues if they try and condense the LPL season. There's the fact of the matter that if the Chinese government wants players to participate in the Asian games because it's important for national pride, shouldn't that same government be able to allow them to play from quarantine or set up a quarantine facility where it's possible to play LPL games on their return? This is pure pandering from Riot towards the Chinese government. It would not be done, I don't think, for any other region or reason, but because this situation, which is solvable from a variety of ways, up to the point of just having the Chinese team play on pings because they're the ones who are not fucking being there. So why should everyone else be punished in this situation? The whole thing is objectively ridiculous and shows a poor understanding of priorities of which tournaments are important, not the Asian games. Because guess what?
Not MSI either. Like, honestly, I'm for just canceling the whole fucking tournament.
Sure, fine, do it. Like, I don't care about MSI that much either. I'm with Dom. Or like, I don't care that much that the LPL team goes. So
I do. If the LPL team, because essentially for me, I'm looking at it as like LPL 1 seed versus LCK 1 seed. Like, what team is better at this current moment? Yes. That's how I view MSI. If LPL didn't go, I literally wouldn't cover the tournament. Like, I would show up to these shows and, like, you know, do some prep for that, but I'm not watching the games live. I'm not waking up at 3 a.m. to live view.
Oh, sure.
Fucking EG play versus T1. Like, it's not happening. Straight up.
I think the issue is, like, there could have been many other solutions to this problem, and fans are like, this is the best solution. It's like, it's not. It's objectively not the best solution. It's not the most fair solution. The only problem that it solves is that Riot wants to make China happy, and they are owned by a Chinese company, and they want not to lose 80% of the viewership that they promised to the sponsors of MSI and Worlds. And I'm not saying those are irrelevant concerns. I'm just saying that what should be done is that the Asian games should be sacrificed on the altar of MSI. That's what I'm saying should be done. Because Asian games, if I have to pick between which tournament I'm more excited by, it's MSI compared to Asian games, because again, it's only a 2-horse race over there at the Asian games, and we don't even get to see or potentially don't even get to see rosters that are used to practicing together if they mix and match rosters from all these other teams. So why would I want to watch that either? I don't really. And it's only important for national pride or for Korean players to be exempted from military service. And that doesn't affect the Chinese players. So I don't care about Asian games. And I don't think that it's right to prioritize them. And if I was one of the teams, I would be very angry because I am paying my players for exposure in the leagues that they play in, not to go wear a Team China jersey or a Team Korea jersey and go to Asian games. Why am I paying my players to truncate their seasons or to forfeit matches because of COVID that happens in Korea? The whole premise is ridiculous.
That is something that happens all the time in the FIFA calendar for soccer, where players will. It's a little different because the worry is that your player that you're paying gets injured and then can't play on your team. But in this case, the player that you're paying isn't even playing in the tournament now, right? And so I think that's definitely a big concern that will have to get figured out, because it feels like the Asian games and these global national tournaments aren't going to go away. I feel like it's not going to go away.
They should fuck off. I wish they would fuck off in every single sport, dGon. Like, I'm the guy who doesn't care about World Cup or national teams, because to me, they're just worse versions of teams that practice together all the time and have actual synergy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, why do I care about the fucking World Cup? I don't. Like, why do I care about Olympic team sports? I don't. They're actually the most boring sports played at the Olympics most of the time are the team sports, because they're just a bunch of stars together, sometimes with no synergy, or they're a bunch of like amateur players with like one star player. It's fucking boring. It's the worst form of sports.
I would say that the national pride is very fun. This is different because, again, generally the calendar will not conflict their professional job and the international tournament. But in this case, the pandering to the Asian games is not great. And again, RNG is not the only team that is affected by that. Gigabyte Marines from Vietnam, who won, are representing Vietnam in the Southeast Asian Games, the SEA Games. So it's Team 2 coming on in. It's Saigon Buffalo that will be representing the VCS. Only familiar name to me there is Big Koro down in the bot lane, who makes his return to the international stage.
This is the problem with developer-run esports, is that they are prioritizing the marketing and kowtowing to an Olympic committee as opposed to the competitive integrity of the actual leagues in which these players play.
There we go. So a lot of the business of MSI out there and out the way. The draw went as planned, though.
No, it didn't.
It went, well, what do you mean, no, it didn't? It still happened.
I mean, it wasn't as planned, though. You know, they switched the people doing the draw who were supposed to be there.
Sorry, that's right. I was going to get to that.
I don't know what you're talking about. It definitely didn't go as planned. It definitely didn't go as planned.
I think they planned it. I think that it was just an inside job to have Double F talk shit about a pro player's wife and then get removed. I think that was the plan all along.
Yeah. So thankfully, Lily Pichu and Michael Reeves and Medios were still there to conduct the draw.
Monty, like, can you get with the fucking program already? It's okay to talk shit about a current pro player, top pro player's significant other and wife, and make fun of her being abused. But if you make a nail polish joke, that's where we end it.
That's where the co-streaming, that's where it must stop, Dom. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Especially if you make it to someone who you presume is a male, because apparently that is just a super gender-based insult, and it has nothing to do with, the actual activity in that uses your hands, like painting your own fucking nails. No, it has nothing to do with that. Pure sexism.
Super weird. I've never heard of any other instances where Riot would have weird double standards in terms of the rules that they allegedly have and how they enforce them. I've been told that being a co-streamer carries a very strict, code of conduct that absolutely must be adhered to. Otherwise, they take it away for, who knows how long. But apparently that didn't cross the line, I guess. Weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't really speak on it. I'm sure that somebody else will get a strict co-streaming punishment in the future. There's no way that the nail polish joke will take me out for 8 months or something, and then You know, that's the longest. You know, it's not like I was banned for a year and then for some reason now you can do whatever the fuck. You can be literally racist in solo queue. You can literally be racist and get a 3-game penalty. When I got a fucking 56-game penalty suspension for, I mean, that was just regular season games. I made playoffs every single fucking split of my career. So if you count all the playoff games, it's literally like I got like 100-game suspension. If you include Worlds, maybe even more. Like, come on. Let's be real here. There's no chance that once again I just received the harshest punishment by far, and other people can do whatever the fuck they want and they won't have anything done to them. No chance.
It definitely doesn't have anything to do with who they like and don't like as to how punishments are meted out or how valuable they perceive you to be to the audience that they want to sell. Sure. Or the fact that you are at a Grubhub tournament when you are yourself sponsored by Grubhub and in Grubhub commercials. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. Nothing at all.
The riot apologist has nothing to cover on this one. I just want to put that for the record here. I did not like that either. All right. Now we got, I think, all the business out. Can we please get to the fucking draw? All right, cool. All right, let's look here. Group A.
Very exciting groups that everyone is so psyched. I will say, at least we get NA versus EU. That is somewhat fun.
Let's just get to that.
Yeah, but it's like NA versus EU where like it doesn't matter, right? Like, does it really matter? Like, don't they both just get out almost guaranteed?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because Australia is also NA. So either way, one NA team is getting out of this group.
Exactly.
Lots of shit talking to be expected by this mainly English speaking group here in Group C. Again, we talked about it when Order originally qualified. The only person with international experience is BioPanther, who was part of the Pentanet roster. G2 obviously coming back, and Evil Geniuses as the LCS representative. Every other group should be pretty much done and dusted. RNG and PSG should get out of Group B, and T1 with Group A will have a next team that makes it out. Maybe Detonation Focus Me.
I mean, this is like why MSI sucks so much to fucking watch. It's like, who wants to watch all these best of ones? Who wants to watch fucking? We're gonna have to watch 8 best of ones of Order. Like, you watch all of these. Like, the majority of the tournament is watching wildcard teams play again. Like, it's not like you're watching like RNG versus T1 and they play a bunch of best of ones. Like, G2 is going to play more best of ones against fucking Order than they're going to play against T1 or RNG. Like, I don't know, man. It's just every single time it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact problem where the majority of the tournament is in this horrible group stage playing best of ones between regions that aren't actually competitive. Like, it's slated to be a situation where like the 2 top teams just get out of each group. It should just be PSG, RNG. It should generally be like probably the Vietnamese team out of Group A, but obviously the number 1 Vietnamese team is not going here. So who knows? But like T1 is definitely going to get out. Probably it's going to be Detonation Focus Me in this one. And then Group C, it should be just G2 getting out and then EG getting out. So it's like you already, so what's the point of watching all these games? Which means that like by the last day, you're going to have like 3 to 4 dead games at the end of every single final group day. I mean, it's just so many best of ones that mean nothing. And then once that is done, oh, great. What do we do now? We get more best of ones. But this time it should be like an obvious like 5 and 6. I mean, obviously last year didn't end up happening. The LCS team ended up going out, didn't make top 4 of the tournament, but so many best of ones where like, I want to see some best of 5s, dude. I want to see, why can't we do some best of 3s? Maybe the group stage is best of 1s and the Rumble stage becomes best of 3s. There's so many different things you could do to make the tournament have some life to it. But like, with the tournament format that it is right here, it's like how many best of ones do we have to watch? Was it 18 best of ones of Pentanet playing? Or was it 19? Maybe didn't they have to play a tiebreak? We might have had to watch 19 best of ones from Pentanet last year. What the fuck? They don't even deserve to have a region. Riot won't even give them a region. They don't actually have a region.
Their region. They took away their region.
They took away their region, but then we have to watch 19 best of ones. We watch them play just RNG 6 times. 6 best of ones between Pentanet and RNG last year. Come on, man. There's got to be a better solution. It can't be like this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there could be a better solution. All you need to know about MSI is Shox would literally rather not be there and go to the CSGO major. That's how terrible this is. I mean, I'd rather to be at the CSGO major as well, but you know.
Me too. And I've watched like 2 hours of CSGO in the last 5 years.
So I agree. And, we've discussed this before, but I think the better solution is just one massive double elimination bracket. So that way you get the minor regions fighting against each other in the losers bracket. You see which one makes it the furthest, right? And you have more competitive matches as the teams kind of winnow each other down in the upper bracket, and you get to see a lot more best of fives overall. There are very easy solutions to this problem that would make it much cooler. You just have to figure out the way to describe it to rioters who don't understand esports. So I would be like, guys, you love March Madness, right? You know how it's just like a giant bracket? They're like, yeah. I'm like, but make it double elimination. And they're like, what is double elimination? And I say, you know what it is. You put it in LCS and LEC playoffs. You also know what it is in Valorant. So you can't lie to me anymore and pretend like you don't know what it is.
I mean, what you do is you have to like write out the whole formula, but you just got to like not put your name at the top and then just be like, is there any way that this could work? And then they'll be like, we came up with that. And then you just write Riot Games where it says name. And then if they believe they came up with it, then perfect. Like then you
it's like an elementary school like math worksheet with like the blank name at the top, and you just fill it out and you just you just slide it across the table to them, and they just like write in crayon, like, the name of the person at the top.
Wait, is that how you pronounce crayon?
Crayon, yeah.
Yeah, I say crayon. Yeah, you say crayon.
Yeah, we said crayon where I grew up. Miami, it's crayon. Is it crayon?
Crayon, yeah. I think it's the Western United States way of saying it.
Crayon, like cranberry. Okay, all right.
Yeah, same.
Fans at home, if you want to weigh in on what the best format for MSI is, or the best way to say what crayon is, let us know in the comments below on this video. Make sure to subscribe so that we can continue to chase.
You just loaded that question because you pronounced it one way that you don't even pronounce it. So
I know. Okay. Do you say crayon or crayon? Let us know after you subscribe to the Deserto YouTube channel to make sure you don't miss any of the jungle action. All right. Thank you for diving into MSI, all the news and side news that came with it. Let's go take a... what's up?
I just think it's very difficult to even talk about this tournament because nobody's going to watch all of these minor regions games who's like a gameplay expert. You're going to watch... No. Before the tournament.
Oh.
Are you going to go back and like watch how these teams got here?
I used to. I would go to like the finals and like the semifinals of some of the other regions, but no, not this time. Not this time.
So Team Ace, who's from the LATAM region, has
tell me something about Team Ace.
2 Korean players that immigrated over, or not immigrated over, but it like made the move to play in that region. Lonely, who was part of Sandbox, then Genji Challengers, but originally played for the Seoul team in the IESF, the International Esports Federation tournament. And that was part of the winning team. And that like that's throwback back in 2015. So he is their top laner. And so A's being represented by Lonely, Dimitri, Alone, Skid, and Straight. I believe Skid is the other Korean member at the AD carry role.
It'll be O-Kid. O is 5 in Korean, so it'll be O-Kid. Be how you say it.
Got it. O-Kid. There you go. So he was part of the KT roster system early on. So there you go. There's a little MSI fact for you from the LATAM region. That's the research that I'm gonna do.
Dimitri guy's pretty good. I played against that guy in solo queue. Okay, he's pretty good.
Oh yeah,
he's like a Lee Sin player. That's how at least I remember him in solo queue. He was just like a really like nutty Lee Sin player. So okay, I'm down. I want to see how he looks. Maybe he's the next Jose Deodo. Who knows? Jose was a really high rated solo queue Lee Sin player as well. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch the games at MSI, right? I'm just saying I'm not going to go through like the fucking Latin playoffs. I'm not going to.
I did last year, actually. I did last year. It was pretty interesting.
VODs and VODs of
what was the most interesting part about it, Dom?
I mean, it's just like there's like zero macro, at least in the play. Like it looks like the teams actually leveled up for Worlds. There was actually zero macro, so it was just like fighting. And then also, I think I did Brazil as well. I think I did some red canids as well. And the thing that's so hype about Latin American regions is they're just like so hyped. Like they get a kill, you just see them fucking screaming, like standing up, like taking off their shirt, like you know, like it's fucking respectable.
Well, we got to see a hype moment from the first series in our LCS playoffs. It was the game number 1, Evil Geniuses Team Liquid pentakill coming from Danny, and the pop-off moment came from Jojo P, and they caught it on his camera. Let's take a look at that series. And we had Big Steve, Steve Arancet, on our show last week. He said it was championship or bust for this roster. I think everyone except one person, was it Scooch, I think, picked Team Liquid over Evil Geniuses, and Evil Genius came.
I picked EG.
Did you?
Yeah, I said 3-1 awesome. EG.
Oh, okay. EG came in and punched TL in the face, and TL did not have an answer. Honestly, no one had an answer for getting punched in the face, to be honest.
I did not think they would lose to 100 Thieves. Or I did not think 100 Thieves would lose to them, but I did pick EG over TL.
I picked TL over EG, and then I picked EG over 100 Thieves. Yeah. TL over I just EG, like, EG. I don't know. I can't believe that TL was this bad. Like, it was kind of crazy to me.
Well,
really? I feel like they've been this bad.
Yeah, but it looked extremely fixable, to be honest. From my perspective, I was like, oh, so like you literally would have just beat 100 Thieves if you banned Ornn. Like, we're just gonna have an answer to Ornn this time, and you know everything will be fine. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a Divine Sunder or Corki coming in, a Bjergsen TF, and then a Bjergsen Silas. It was just not it. And then also like just the whole way that it was played was so weird. I mean, I don't know what happened to Han Sama, but this guy used to be really, really fucking like good at laning. He was like this super aggro beast of an AD carry. And now he's just like losing his summoner's bot lane with like Ashe Zyra to just Jinx traps. Like Jinx just walks up and puts traps, and it's like, oh, that's 3 summoners right there. What the fuck? Like the whole strategy was around Ashe Zyra winning lane. So I don't know, man. It's disappointing to me. I expected more of TL, to be honest.
I think they're just this. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, the number of late game macro mistakes we've seen this year from Team Liquid is just honestly shocking. From obviously like the famous, well, the now I would say infamous like Bjergsen package TP play on the Corki earlier in this playoffs that allowed Abadage to backdoor the Nexus. Be careful about language, because like, you know, it was pretty clear what was going to happen in that moment to them continuing to like go after this Baron. And I think people have the wrong read on this play, which is like, okay, so yes, Danny did steal the Baron, but did that even matter? I don't think it did. I think maybe you could say like the Baron buff or the reset helped out with that play, but I think he kills at least 4 of them, even if he doesn't get that Baron. They were so low, caught in a pit against this Jinx, and the Tahm Kench was still there in order to help out. So I think like that was kind of a doomed play no matter what. That was another poor macro call, and what was still at that point in time a winnable game for Team Liquid. Both the first 2 games were perfectly winnable for Team Liquid, and then they only really got kind of smashed in the final game that was very convincing for EG. So yeah, I mean, I think the Team Liquid project, if we're being honest with ourselves, is a incredibly massive disappointment. It's a huge financial disappointment, considering that this is most likely the most expensive roster ever built in the entire history of Western League of Legends. I can only say potentially, because I do know how much this roster costs, but I don't technically know how much some other rosters cost. But I would be shocked if this was not the case, that it is in fact the most expensive roster. If you're Bjergsen coming back and you get the first team all pro, and frankly mids have looked very weak overall in the LCS this year, this is not a good performance for you. You need to absolutely be smashing Jojo Pian. Like it's unacceptable to have his level of performance in this kind of game, or even in this, you know, over the whole playoffs. Especially considering he's getting paid more than entire other teams.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that for like literally 4 of them, I think outside of Santorin's the only player on the team that I'm like, you probably should not be the best jungler in LCS. I think for everyone else, they should just be the best player in LCS in their role. Yes. So I mean, Bjergsen really just looked like TSM Bjergsen. It was just one of those, it just reminded me so much of those series that TSM used to have where Bjergsen was just kind of like farming, doing nothing, and then they eventually just lose without much action. Where on a lot of those games, you're like, please just do something, man. You're playing TF. Like, I want to see something happen, like force action, drop a wave to make something happen. But it just felt like that never really occurred. I mean, even the fight that ETP to bot lane was like a complete lost fight, and it was just like 4-for-2 or whatever. And then also, like, for me, I think the bot lane was like the most disappointing thing, because I feel like bot lanes are not that good right now. Like, when you think about the laning, right? Like, Danny and Vulcan are not good in lane. They're really good outside of lane. Their laning is pretty bad, right? Like, you think about just how many times so the level 1, the Ashe Zyra lane, where they just didn't know how to play against the lane, and they were level 1 to level 3. If the enemy team's better, that's dive timing. You might never even get to play that game. They got solo killed, I believe, in this series as well. Maybe it was game 1, maybe game 3. I'm not sure. They got solo killed, I think, in this series, and then they got killed twice, I believe, by 100 Thieves. They died in the last game, like the Nautilus death, where I don't know where Vulcan was going. I mean, I think from watching it, I assume that he's trying to stall time because his jungler is doing like red Raptors into a bot gang, so he's trying to stall time. That's why he's keeping them interested. But I mean, the W start and just walking into the enemy team and dying, that's bad. And they also died. Danny died in the first game as well. So it feels like EG's bot lane is actually doing really poorly in lane. And then Hansama and Core JJ, when you think about them, right, like they should be just by far the best laning bot lane. They should just be able to smash people in bot lane by such a degree that they can carry the whole game through that. And when you think about the creation of this team, Bubba was always good at being like an aggro weak side top laner, where he understood tempo better than almost every other top laner in LEC. So he knew when he could die for a wave, or when he could, like, you know, suicide in a situation where he would just buy so much time for his bot lane that they would end up just being way far ahead of the enemy bot lane. He was really smart about just how much pressure he could absorb and how he could play the game without resources going into him, and then even sacrificing his lane to help out his bot lane. Like, that Hillsong Reckless lineup was predicated on the fact that Bubba was able to play essentially without a jungler and still be super effective in games. And I was expecting the same type of thing with Core JJ and Hansama being able to just dick people, but it just feels like there's something missing. For some reason, they're not clicking at all.
Or, I mean, the other option was like Core JJ, you know, Whippo has a broad champion pool and a very good knowledge of top lane matchups that he can get aggressive in. And you would expect potentially Core JJ to be able to be freed up to go help him win some of these matchups harder in the top side, which then snowballs Whippo into an unstoppable force in these games. The problem is none of this stuff is happening. This team is like somehow vastly less than the sum of their parts, which is what is very disappointing about this roster.
Yeah, because I feel like they end up in a situation where you have so many good players and everyone can kind of do everything that you don't realize, you don't like come to any hard conclusions of how your team wants to play, and you don't commit to a play style because you just think, oh yeah, we can just do everything, right? Like, we can play top side, we can play bot side. We'll just play however the game like shakes out based on every single draft. We'll look at it and we'll just play optimally to whatever win condition presents itself, where it's like, dude, no one in the world is good enough to fucking do that. Like, RNG can't figure that shit out, and they're a much better team than you guys. Like, they're a fucking team that's like winning fucking MSI and shit. They can't figure out how to play to like both sides of the map, but like depending on draft, will either camp Bin's lane or what. Like, they still decided on a fucking style, even though in my opinion they decided on the wrong one. At least they fucking commit to something. At least they play similar looking games from time to time. Looks like TL is just in that stage where they just have failed in terms of creating an actual team where they understand what everyone's strengths and weaknesses actually are. And I feel like that just becomes like, when you're on these super teams, people are just not honest with each other about what they're fucking good at and what they're bad at. You know, like, everyone just wants to be like, yeah, dude, it's a super team, we can all do everything. Like, in reality, they're all like, every fucking player is going to be flawed in the entire world. Every single player, every single human being is a flawed human being when it comes to like whatever they're fucking doing. And the only way your team is going to succeed is if you're able to actually be honest about your strengths and weaknesses, and you can actually plan to maximize your strengths because everyone knows what everyone else is good at. You don't have to broadcast it to the world, but like, if in reality it's like, hey man, like, if you're Blibble, maybe you're just not that good at carrying games like with all the resources dumped into you, because sometimes you run it down in a fight, and that's just a characteristic that you don't really want to have if you're going to be playing a hard carry top lane. Maybe like Core JJ can roam and stuff like that, but if Like to make the team the best, to enable Hansama to really carry, he needs to just stay in lane more. Like you have to just figure out what your team is actually the best at. And it feels like they don't know. They just kind of do everything all the time.
The problem that I ran into when I was trying to predict the TL versus EG series and why I predicted EG was that if I was really honest about individual playoff performances, I really thought that for the most part, every player on EG was just one-on-one better than their opponent. Like, I think you can, that is, I don't think that's outrageous to say, given the performances from these individual players that we've seen. Like, you wouldn't normally be like, yeah, I think Jojo Pian has been playing better than Bjergsen, right? But I really felt that was true throughout a lot of the playoffs. And outside of laning phase, Danny and Vulcan have been doing pretty well overall. And I can't really, like, at least for sometimes Danny will die in lane, but he also has massive team fights where he carries. And the thing about EG was that they also had a very distinct identity of, we are going to play hard engage, front to back 5v5 team fighting comps, and Danny is going to pump out damage in these fights. And that's what they did every single game. Like, it was a predictable game plan. It's an easy to execute game plan, but it was a definitive concrete foundation that they were building these playoffs off of. And to Dom's point, you don't really see that on the Team Liquid side. It feels like they got too clever, too cute, and they're like, remember Ashe Zyra? Here we go. We're going to abuse the fact that Danny and Vulcan have this weaker laning phase, and we're going to snowball that into a win. But they're not playing their own style. They're playing counter styles. And it felt like the same shit, honestly, with 100 Thieves, is that neither of these teams were playing to their own strengths. They were trying to exploit the weaknesses of EG, and they were unable to actually execute on these compositions.
I mean, It just goes back to the same thing, right? It's like all of their strategies. I mean, that could work if they wanted to be like an abusive bot lane team, and that's your strategy. It's like, okay, so we're just going to be playing to like try to minimize how hard our top loses, and we're going to be drafting to just maximize how fucking hard our bot lane can fuck the enemy. Does that mean we need like a mid jungle that can always fucking move, that like can drop waves level 3 and get down there because bot lane is literally just fisting the enemy that hard? If that's the case, then you can actually set your team up like that. The problem is that they have different, like, just look at last week, right? Look at the series they played against 100 Thieves. What are they playing? They're playing like Lucian top into Ornn and stuff. Like, so that is like, so when you're playing Lucian top, if you're doing it successfully, you look at a team like RNG that played a lot of Lucian top last year. What was the whole strategy? It was about like stacking waves with Lucian top, and then you'd get your fucking mid and your jungle up there ASAP and just punish the fucking top laner. Like, you don't let the Ornn lane like 20 CS down to the Lucian, and then the Lucian is actually losing in that circumstance, because once you get into team fights, Ornn can still front to back, and Lucian's just not going to provide enough damage with that small CS lead to actually win. Like, you use the fact that the Lucian can actually stack waves and like has the ability to fight whenever he wants, to just dive the enemy top laner relentlessly. So you find out timings. It's like, what is it? Are we diving on 4th wave, 3rd wave, whatever it is? You get a jungler that can fucking do it. You get a mid lane that can push. You play for that. Or you just drop waves. Like, how many times did Cryan just play Galio, just drop fucking mid wave, and he's just behind the top turret at level 4? People will be like, oh, but Cryan, he's so bad at laning, he had to do that. It's like, no, he actually did it. Like, there was a point where he was good enough at laning that he could go even on mages and play like that. RNG just wasn't successful. So when you look at TL, they're doing the Lucian top into Ornn, but they don't know how to play with that because they haven't practiced that. And in this series, they're doing the Ashe Zyra, which is a completely different thing, right? Like, you have to understand a bunch of different circumstances when you're going to be playing this type of lane. Are we playing for dives actually with Ashe Zyra? I mean, I don't really know. I haven't played with Ashe Zyra that much myself, or like, I'm not sure how practical those situations are. So I don't know if you actually need to drop waves and be down there with TF early and abuse them when you're 3-1. I don't know if you can get that level 3 to level 1 advantage consistently every game, and I don't know if they're actually able to play around it. But it doesn't seem like they're using these situations that occur in game optimally at all. It's like, oh, bot lane's winning. It's like, nice, go bot lane. Like, they're like, yeah, that's good. But it's like, what the fuck? Like, how are we making this a win? Like, I think that in that game, like, if, for example, in game 2, I think in that game, you can actually just win a game based off the first EG trade. I think when EG trades that poorly and you get that massive wave stack, level 3, level 1, if you dive them and it even goes like 2 for 2 or something, and the enemy AD carry doesn't get to catch that wave, I think it's already a win. I think the enemy AD carry is so fucking far behind at that point. You can literally snowball it into dragon control, snowball it into like early herald moves into place. Like, you can win a fucking game.
especially with the way that EG plays as well, because it's not like Jojo Pian is the best team fighting mid laner in the league that you're really going to have to worry about. So much of that's the point, is that so much of EG's strength is Danny in these team fights, and they rely on him for a massive amount of their damage output. And if he is shut out of these games, EG is actually useless. And the fact that he wasn't punished in either of these series more for these laning mistakes, same shit with 100 Thieves. Like, don't like roll up and like play Twisted Fate and get advantages and then like throw them around objectives. Like, why are you even playing objectives with Twisted Fate if you're 100 Thieves, when you should be actually more aggressively playing the side lanes and diving in these scenarios and snowballing the advantages that way? So I think a lot of it is just error from the teams that they're playing against, and teams at the international level who are attending MSI with EG are not going to make these mistakes. Like, it's not rocket science, guys. Like, you know what to do. A lot of teams are very capable of making these dives.
Yeah. I mean, but the other teams, like, they practice what they're actually going to do. Like, when you watch T1 play, you know how T1 is going to play. Like, regardless of what happens in the first, like, 6-7 minutes of the game, you can expect T1 to swap at 8, like put their support mid, leech level 6, play for the Herald fight. Like, they do it so consistently. They have a formula. And those are the things that you need to actually have as like pillars of your gameplay, that when things don't go to plan in the early game, because you don't know, like, every now and then, I mean, you're all pro players. Certain players are going to just play lane phases really well, or somebody might like play an all in better than you expected, flash a key ability, they might win. Like, you need to be able to go back to these types of things that you've practiced time and time again, these set plays that will allow you to just get out of situations and like get yourself more comfortable in the game. I don't know what TL set plays are. I really don't know what they do better than other teams when I watch them play. It just looks like sometimes they just win fights because they're better players. It's like, or they just get to an objective earlier that they should have the ability to contest, that the enemy team shouldn't have the ability to contest, and the enemy team tries to contest it anyway and they lose. Outside of that, I don't really know what TL's like identity is.
You know, that's why I asked when Steve was on the show last week about Gyoto, because I think Gyoto's a great coach, don't get me wrong, but it's a very different environment for Gyoto to go from the teams he has previously coached, where he is about optimizing kind of newer talent, or like creating rosters that may not have exactly superstar players on them, and kind of getting the most out of younger or less experienced players. It is an entirely different ball game if you're dealing with people who have played the game for this long and have very entrenched kind of identities or philosophies around the game. So that's why I was curious why they went with Gyoto here as the coach of this team. You know, I have no idea how he functions in this environment. It could, you know, this could not be Gyoto's issue at all. Like, he could be running into massive egos. Like, we don't know what the internal mechanism of this team is right now, but it is very curious that they appear just to have no identity, and just randomly, it appears like they try kind of random game plans that they don't appear ready themselves to run effectively.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, the way that he that Steve talked about them, I wonder how much healthy conflict they have within the team, because that's really necessary to be able to actually come to conclusions in any type of team environment. Monty, have you read the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team?
No, I haven't.
This is like, so this is a book that I think every coach should read. But one of the pillars of this book is just this formula. It's like this pyramid where he says these are the 5 main dysfunctions that a team has, and one of them is like, does your team have enough healthy conflict? Because like people need to be able to voice their opinion, even if they end up not agreeing with their teammates, or the conclusion that the team comes to is not in their best interest. As long as people are being heard, generally they're going to be more okay with whatever conclusion the team comes up to. But when I hear about this, and I hear that they're all working hard, like they all respect each other a lot, I wonder if they're having enough healthy conflict to get to the bottom of like what the conclusions need to be around picks and stuff. Because when you watch the games, right, it's like, okay, so when they lost the 100 Thieves series, it was like all about Orin, right? They lost all 3 games to Orin top, and they didn't really come to a solid conclusion on that. And the problem, one of the downfall in this book of not having enough healthy conflict is something that he calls false harmony, where people they seem harmonious. It seems like, oh, the team has no problems. But
there's like simmering resentment because like it's not
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So the idea is that even if you do have like a harmonious team environment, if people weren't actually able to voice their opinions and they weren't able to put their input in and they don't feel like they're being heard, you end up with these conclusions that people don't agree with. And then that leads to you not committing to things as a team because you don't actually believe in what you agreed upon. Like the meeting.
Well, you haven't agreed on anything really. It's just
exactly.
You're avoiding conflict.
You avoid the conflict. So it's like the easiest unspoken consensus, which is often not where greatness lies, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean it's a really interesting book. I think that this like the 5 ways that he puts things together. I mean, it was written for like teams of any type of thing. It's like corporate teams, athletic teams, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this is one of the problems that you're going to have with super teams is people are going to be like overly respectful. It's like you have such respect.
Well, it's also
for your
this
teammates,
group
you can't
of
even
players,
be like vulnerable. I
think part of the value of Jensen is that he's a very direct guy, right? And like, I'm sure Jensen sparked more conflict on the old roster. And you could say the same thing about Alfari, actually. Like, Alfari is extremely direct, right? And so even though that roster didn't work for a variety of reasons, if you actually look at the personalities on this team, like, who is the person who's going aggro in order to have these conversations?
Yeah,
Whippo.
There's Whippo baby, but like, they're all pretty like mild, respectful people at the end of the day. Like everybody on this roster.
It doesn't necessarily have to be like a super aggressive discussion. It literally just needs to be like proper conflict. Like, I don't agree with you because of these reasons. This is how I see the game. I don't think that like,
I just don't think that person exists on this team, dude. That's what I'm saying. Who is it? I don't think there is. I know all these people pretty well.
It might be overly harmonious. That's the point that I'm trying to get here. It's like it can be so harmonious that it's a fault. Like, and one thing that Kyoto was actually supposed to be really good at was creating these conflicts, these healthy conflicts amongst teams. When he was with Immortals, that was one thing that Revenge always praised him for. Was that he made their culture like an EU culture where people are willing to just say like, hey, I don't agree with it. Like, I don't think that we should play like this. I think that what you're doing here is actually bad, and force those types of conflicts. But I don't know if that translates to a team where everyone has like more of an ego. I mean, the more accomplished players you get, the more egos that you're going to generally have to deal with.
But at the same time, I think to your point, Dom, there was never really a reason for them to do this throughout. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they were just cruising through the regular split, right? They were just watching. Like, EG wasn't doing great. 100 Thieves was terrible for most of the regular split up until the very end. Cloud9 fucking imploded. So if you're TL, like, you're just chilling, man. You're just big chilling, like winning games. And it wasn't until and even like, did you actually learn anything if your team liquid from any of these series? Like, let's think about it. Okay, so you beat EG, but you can, if you're a professional player, I think you can dismiss that first EG loss as being like, they had the level ones, they got these big advantages. Like, we're not going to do this bullshit again. Haha, they played Renekton in Italy when their backs were against the wall. They clearly are intimidated by us, which I think was true at the time of EG. Then you go with the 100 Thieves games, you're like, well, that was a stupid way to end that series. Like, we're not going to make that macro mistake again, right? Like, that was silly, but we're still the better team. Like, blah, blah, blah. I think those were very dismissible losses if your team liquid. And so I don't think they've actually hit a wall or really had anything that would make them not believe that they are the best team until they hit EG this week.
I feel like we're taking a look at how cush it was for TL to that point. But one thing that you did bring up was this Ornn. Is that not just an elephant in the room that no one wanted to try and just directly just get rid of? Is that an ego thing? Is that just not something they should have directly handled? We're talking about theory and dysfunction within team. It's like, hey, Ornn was good.
Well,
do we not have a counter for Ornn?
No, if you're Whippo, you're like, well, I got this counter, guys. Oh, didn't work. Well, I got this counter now. It's like they believe that these are the abilities that they should be using because they fundamentally, the only thing that this says is that they fundamentally believe that they are individually capable of overcoming these problems, right? And so all Whippo has to say is like, I got this, guys. Like, this is how we're going to do it. And it doesn't matter if they necessarily practice this or not. Even though I will say Steve's implication last week was that they had practiced these counter picks into Ornn and were confident in them. But again, scrims are different than reality, right? And you're probably not going to get those crazy lane leads that you get in scrims in a professional game. But they should know that. These guys are all hyper veteran players. And it just seems like they just fundamentally disrespect the other players in this league. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I mean,
big brain impact. Just like inting in scrims.
I mean, look, when you look at the players across this team, you would expect them to have that mentality where, hey, we can draft anything in any role and it doesn't matter because we're just better. So like,
and it worked for most of the season.
Yeah, but it's like, is that actually going to get you to the highest level possible? Like, let's say you end up playing bot side focused drafts and you beat like FlyQuest and Golden Guardians, and then you go the next week and you're playing top centric drafts with like Lucian top and things like that, and you beat like fucking Golden Guardians or some shit and like Dignitas. It's like, does that actually mean, like, can you actually take weight out of that you're executing these things properly? I think you have to be it's really hard because you're obviously in a league where there's not going to be a ton of competition outside of like the top 4 teams. So I think in general, you just have to be really like hypercritical of yourselves and be realistic with like how you are winning these games and if they are like easily replicable against teams that are better. Like, because the goal here should not be even winning an A. Like, you should be trying your best to win an A. Definitely. The goal should be international.
Here's the thing about being in a minor region, right? I know it's technically a major region, but a worse region. You have to hold yourself to a ridiculously high standard if you are going to see international success. And that has happened. We can just say straight up in other esports and other scenes, it's not some sort of fluke that the Brazilian roster that was Luminosity and became SK Gaming later on, that was based out of North America, by the way, a notoriously weak Counter-Strike region, was able to become a major champion and the best team in the world. And the way that they did that was by, even though they got garbage practice, they held themselves to a standard within the way they were viewing the game and the way they wanted to practice themselves, where they got rid of all of the junk plays or like stupid things they could get away with against these teams. And they said, okay, we won, but that was bad and we shouldn't do it that way. And only if you do that can you actually like supersede the level of practice and the level of opponents you're playing against. And like, I just don't feel that is the culture at Team Liquid. Like, I don't feel like they're holding themselves to an international standard when they play these games, because we don't see them actually just gloriously smashing these teams, or we see them doing things that we just know international teams, good international teams, would not be doing. Right.
And this is just looping it back into one of our better players and has those aspirations. This is exactly what Fudge said about Summit's deaths. It was like, hey, like, we let that slide. That needed to be weighted more. It was constant throughout the season, but we kept winning. But that is something that we should have done.
This is something that every NA team always does. It's like, that just seems to me like the same type of problem where you're afraid of like, was anyone actually going to Summit like and being like, hey, I think you're actually inting here, bro. Like, you're the MVP and whatever, but as your teammate, like, I think you're just playing poorly in these situations. You're making it way too easy to gank you. And the conclusion isn't necessarily that every single time we have to be able to punish the bot side of the map whenever Summit dies. Like, that can't, like, not every single death that Summit had was punishable. I mean, you watch his fucking series versus EG. It's like he's just inting a lot of these deaths on Jace. Like, they have a timer to knock your ult top. There's nothing available on the bot side of the map, and he's still in positions where he's allowing himself to get ganked. So it's one of those things where you hear that response, and that doesn't actually instill confidence to me. It's like, it's almost like it's such a Summit favored team that he can do no wrong. It's like, yeah, we just when he ints, we got to be making the bot lane int harder than he's inting. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't think that's reasonable considering the way he died. Like, there was just so many deaths, bro. Like, he's dying fucking 7-8 times in a game. You can't be punishing every single one. Like, it's not realistic.
All right. So thank you for that great discourse. And again, what was the name of the book, Dom, for all of our fans?
Patrick Lencioni.
All right, 5 dysfunctions of a team. So to fill your space when we don't have a podcast, you can go read that and become a master coach now.
Even if you're not a big reader, you can literally ignore the first 160 pages where it's essentially like a fable where he tries to put these in real life situations, and you could just read the last 50 where he goes into like what he believes the dysfunctions are, how they relate to one another, and like ways that you can assess these within your own teams. And it's not just for being in a competitive sport. It can also be for being in any type of professional setting, like a job.
For those of you unlucky enough to have jobs where you have to work with other people.
Yeah.
Just almost everyone.
You could be an NFT guy. Even then, I guess you still have to be parts of NFTs and crypto. All right, we'll leave that whole can of worms for later. Let's see. A couple things that I picked up while I was there. Scrim results were indicative of this win here by EG. They apparently were 10-0 going into this final weekend against both TL and 100 Thieves. Let's see. What else came up? I asked Coach Reaper in the press conference, hey, Ornn was a pretty big presence. You guys played against it, didn't work. You picked it and got counterpicked by MonteCristo. Were you surprised by MonteCristo? That was to him and someday. And Reaper just took the mic and said, yes. Just put it down. Reaper again was such a pro, and you could see how much it meant to him to get to that point, and he was taking all the bullets for the boys. Not a lot of people ask questions of closer. Abadage kind of took a question, but then just said what he wanted to say. Yeah, that was tough. It was definitely, lose interviews are always tough in the press conference because it's live, everyone's watching. EG praising their strategy, praising their system. Vulcan, no shortage of words at all. If I can try to find the link to the press conference, he just fired away at closer. He's like, closer's been talking way too much for how shit he's been playing. And it's glad that now not just me, but everyone in the league doesn't have to listen to him. Something like that. I was like, well, that was the very first quote. I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. But this squad bucking the trend. And so one of the biggest storylines moving forward here into the summer is that North American talent, it's there. It definitely won over the crowd. It was the first time in a long time I felt like 100 Thieves fan base was like surpassed. Like it was an EG crowd. Like it was massively different, and like people were getting booed when they showed 100 Thieves fans on the camera. It was crazy. And so I kind of want to wonder your thoughts here. NA talent, NA systems, does this prove that this can work?
I don't understand this fucking narrative at all. So
that is the narrative that's getting pushed.
Look, it can work, but it also just requires really good scouting. Like I can tell you from playing fucking solo queue with these guys, like I was doing with Danny in like season 10, this guy was obviously going to be fucking insane. Like he was really, really insane, but other people don't find the actual, like the talented pros. Like, I mean, like it's just that Peter Dunn actually found the people that actually had the talent to make this jump. You can't tell me that if you put like Tuesday from CLG into the main lineup like 5 years ago, you'd have this type of success. It's so much about identifying who has the talent within them and then being able to, find the supporting pieces around them that are actually going to be able to get it done. So I don't think it's like as easy as just believe in NA talent. It's like, no, you just have to fucking find the right NA talent. Like there isn't that much NA talent where it's like, this just shows that like all the fucking NA talent is good. That's the direction people are going. It's like, no. Trust me, it's not, bro. Like we see the other we see what Fake God looks like. All right. That is not the NA talent.
Catching the stray.
We see Jenkins and CLG. Like those guys are the other NA talent. There's not that much insane NA talent out there. EG just fucking found it first. Like, so there are other talented players that can play, but so much of it is on actually scouting people that are capable of making this type of leap.
Yeah. Tenacity Busio as well for 100 Thieves. Then we're still waiting to see what Counter Luger Gaming can do over for CLG along with Poom. So
NA talent.
Well, a lot of a lot of the NA talent. Well, if they end up removing the minor region restrictions on import players next year, then he will be a native player. So spoiler about what's going to happen. So I look. We always had there was always NA talent. Like, did people forget about 2-time MVP Blabber? Hello, like. Yep. What you guys are hearing is a very effective PR campaign by evil geniuses that ignores the fact that Cloud9 has been surfacing many of these players or turning them like, did they make Vulcan? No, Vulcan's NA talent that is one of the best supports in the region. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is this narrative that EG suddenly is the NA team? Like, objectively, C9's been doing this forever. And just wait, guys. It's not, and in terms of surfacing talent, here's the story. EG had holes in their roster that they had to fill with NA players, and those NA players happened to be of playing age. Let's see what happens with 100 Thieves, guys, because I can tell you right now, Papa Smithy's very interested in supporting NA talent. His players just don't happen to be 17 years old, right? Or he doesn't technically need them in his roster at the current point in time because he's made back-to-back finals and won one of them, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I think it's also weird when it's like, dude, it's like, come on, like Inspired was the MVP of LEC. Like, the idea that this guy is just like, it's like, look, it's all the NA. Yeah, I mean, it's like, dude, it's
and a literal fucking world champion who, by the way, is the most stable and consistent player in LCS history.
The best, yeah. He's
the ultimate known quantity. Guess what? He also peaks every playoffs, guys. Impact is a fucking god.
I just feel like it's so disrespectful to the rest of the roster to be like, JoJo and Danny did it by themselves. It's like, come on, man.
Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be really honest with ourselves. Rank the players on EG from best to worst.
I mean, I would say Impact's the best.
Impact Inspired. Vulcan. No. Impact. Danny Inspired.
No,
Vulcan.
You can't say Danny. He fucking ends his lane. Nope. Wrong.
It's literally protect the puppy, right? We're talking about.
Yeah, that doesn't. Look, I'm just going to say wolves don't need protection. Only puppies need protection.
I like that one. That's really good.
Like, I understand what they're doing, but also like he literally is being babysat by like Ornn, Jarvan, Ryze, Tom Kench. Okay?
He is the best native support in like LCS history.
Yeah, Vulcan. So if we're being real, and this isn't throwing shade, JoJo Pan's a rookie. Right. He's doing very well, but JoJo Pan is also the worst player on the team. He's the worst player on the team. Now, will that always be true? Probably not, given the growth that we've seen from this guy.
He should be the worst player on the team.
He should be the worst player on the team. It's not insulting to say there is a worse player on the team of the team that literally just won the fucking championship and a player that has shown significant growth over the course of this year. And by the way, will get bodied at MSI, but will also probably get a ton of extremely valuable experience and growth at MSI too. So I think in a year, we'll be having a very different conversation about JoJo Pian. But for everybody just to be creaming themselves right now over the NA talent, when these guys are not even the best players on this roster, is disingenuous at best.
Yep. I mean, it just is what it is. It's the same thing that happened with like G2, right? Like people are crowding like Flocked as like the GOAT, but he is by definition, like Flocked and Targamas are by definition the worst players on G2, right? Like, we're not going to be delusional and say that Caps, Yankos, and Broken Blade, one of them is bottom two.
Exactly.
Like, please let's not be delusional for no reason. Like, I'm fucking super happy for Danny and JoJo. Like, I think that's like sick that they actually ended up winning. Like, I'm not hating on them at all. It's just that like factually, the NA talent is not the reason why EG won. It's the combination of actually using your import slots well while having NA talent.
And use your fucking brain, guys. Let's be real. If you replaced JoJo Pian with Jizuke, does EG still win? Almost certainly.
One point I wanted to bring up here in terms of JoJo getting bodied but growing. That was one of the questions in the press conference, and Vulcan took that one very well. He was like, we just need to, it felt like he was almost going through PTSD. He was like, yeah, the difficulties of MSIs, you just got to go and understand that you're going to go and get 06'd by T1. And then the next day you got to get up and you're going to get 06'd by RNG. And you got to get up and you're going to go maybe like 1-5 against another region. And if you're able to do that, then, and you're okay with it, then you'll be able to find the growth. That's probably the most difficult thing. And I love that answer by Vulcan.
Yeah, I think the short term is going to look real bad for EG and MSI. I think the long term of them being able to, there are several great advantages here. One of which is that they get to go to Korea and play in Korean solo queue and have that kind of boot camp and training experience, which, by the way, these young players have never been able to do because of the pandemic. They've literally never had this opportunity. So you have an immense opportunity for growth there. Then you have playing the scrims against all these teams. And fortunately, you're in Asia, where there are going to be a bunch of other awesome teams to scrim against that aren't even playing in MSI, right? Who will be training up for the next split in summer. And so you get great solo queue experience, you get great scrim experience, and you're going to see a lot of growth. But is it going to be painful? Yes, it will be.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, do you have the right people on the team to weather that? And I think that this team actually does. I mean, I think that's one of the praises that I think should be said the most for EG is that their veteran players didn't make the rookies feel out of place. Like,
and their coaches did a very good job of developing the players as well.
Exactly. I think that's really understated. Is like EG's Impact is probably one of the best veterans you could ever have on your team, because he's not gonna make you feel bad for your mistakes. He's just gonna be honest, and he's gonna be open with the things that he does poorly, the things that the flaws that he has in his own gameplay. And that's so crucial, because if you don't have that, you end up having a split team where there's a hierarchy within the team where it's like, these are our good players, these are our shit players, and the shit players are always getting piled on, and the good players are always being like absolved of all their fucking sins throughout the games. And yeah, I just think that their culture is actually really good. And Inspired seemed like he's the type of guy that's not going to dog on his teammates when they do things poorly. Like, he's just seems like a guy that will be okay with people not playing perfectly and have some faith that they're actually going to do better over time. And I think that environment is really, really crucial to success. So yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I dislike about the narrative. Like, I like that NA Talent is getting praised. I like that NA Talent is doing well. I just dislike the fact that it's like Impact and Inspired are not getting the credit that they deserve, because they were really fucking insane in playoffs, right? They were the best top jungler in playoffs.
I just mauled because it's like Blabber doesn't get the credit he deserves from being a literal 2-time league MVP. And it's like, oh my God, EG found the fucking NA talent. It's like, so these guys they weren't even close to winning MVP this season. Like, they weren't the best players on their team at any point in time. They weren't the best players in the league at any point in time. Meanwhile, Blabber's out here crushing it. Like, I can't even imagine how Blabber feels. He's like, I'm just a young guy who's good. Where was this narrative with me? But credit to EG. Like, they are pumping the shit out of that PR, which is very good, because at least they have a brand identity now. They didn't have one before. They were terrible at branding, just god awful. Like, fun challenge. Go to their YouTube and look at how many views their YouTube videos get. There you go, guys. You'll be the third. Okay. You'll be the third view that some of those videos get. Okay,
hey,
they were running it down in terms of like content and branding. So I am happy you fixed your shit, EG. Good job.
Yeah, it might have helped, that some of these videos started getting watched on stream. That's all I'll say. Before some streamers started watching them in between LEC and LCS, I literally broadcasting their videos to 10 times their actual audience. It wasn't doing as well, but thank you, LS, for that.
I wanted to, I think just a quick history lesson. The Live Evil hashtag that just came from Svenskeren, throwing that.
That was
there,
hilarious,
right? And that became their branding. Like, you had a whole department to do that. And it was Svenskeren with
literally being EG and having Jizuke on your team that nobody knew was fucking hilarious until he started coming on talk shows, and you just didn't use him ever for anything.
Yep.
You got one GIF of him with a flamethrower, and that's all you did for like a year. I mean, seriously, what is wrong with
this
you?
Guy literally carried my co-stream for 2 days in a row. Like,
imagine if they had done fun shit with Jizuke that entire time.
just like anything, dude. This guy will always just tell you stories. He'll talk about any. I mean, he's the most Italian guy you'll ever meet too. Like he's just like it would be. You could have such great content. Literally, just get him Domino's pizza and have him flame it. There's a fucking video. Like there's a fucking video idea. That shit would be fucking hilarious. Like I would watch the shit out of it. So I don't know, man. He was probably the most misunderstood player in the entire Western League scene. Everyone thought this guy was like some egotistical fucking asshole, and then you talk to him, you're like, wait, he's just having fun. Like, he's just a nice guy.
He's just loving life. he's got the way he wants to play the game, and he's just living his best life out there on Summoner's Rift. Yeah. It's also an indictment of the LCS too, because they gotta take some heat for this. Not only EG, what a fucking horrible use of LCS time that they never even featured this guy or did shit with him or even knew. It's on you too, LCS. It's like EG can't build stars, but they're doing much better now. Like I said, the turnaround is great. Thank God Danny and Jojo Bien have such great personalities and are willing to talk some shit, and that they're being helped out by the team at long last.
Jojo is. Danny, we're going to keep working on Danny to get him out of his shell. His tweet was probably spicier than like a lot of the press conference that he shared. I remember in the post game when they're on stage, Dash asked like a great question. Danny was like, yes, I think I am. Or something like that. I was like,
the thing is, like, Danny feels like he is a little awkward, but he's like lovably awkward, you know? It's not that you like him when he's awkward. It's different than the trash talk. Yeah. But I do think that Danny has his own charm for sure.
All right. Well, there we have it. EG, the newest franchise to raise a banner into the LCS sphere.
Frankly, just good to see another team do it as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's for me that's actually the bigger part. People will be like, my NA talent that are the 4th and 5th best players on this roster. For me, it's like I'm really glad that we're seeing Evil Geniuses and another new team be winning in LCS.
But it's not like they're 4th and 5th and they're like bad compared to like the rest of the league. I mean, like I would say that throughout playoffs, like, I mean, either Jojo was the best or the second best mid laner throughout playoffs. And then like Danny was probably the best AD carry throughout playoffs as well. So, I mean, I don't really think that it's like, it's like, compared to their teammates, they're not as good as them, but compared to the other players,
saying they're bad guys. It's just saying that this team at the end of the day was led by its veteran players. And while it is exciting to see up and coming North American players, they are not the carries of the team at this point in time in terms of
and they shouldn't be.
And they should not be. And that is one of the best things about the coaching staff is that the coaching staff intentionally doesn't make them that way because they're smart and they know how to use the pieces that they have.
Yes, they don't put fucking Danny. They're not like, Danny, like, this is what the draft is. You're going to have no fucking protection. You're going to be on Kalista. You have to fuck this guy in lane, Danny. Like, you understand you need to absolutely shit on them, stack waves into dives. Our whole draft is dependent on you. Like,
they don't let Danny raw dog. Like, Peter Dunn's there just giving him the condoms. You know, that's how it goes.
Yeah, no, they're like, Danny, like, you know what?
I'm just continuing his analogy. It's fine.
Look, Danny, look, this is all you got to do, man. You got to play Jinx. It doesn't matter if you die in lane. Just show up to the team fights at the right time. Impact's going to be tanking damage for you. He's going to make the fight nice. He's going to get good ultimates, and you just got to clean them up, Danny. You got to just play your team fights well, and that's his job.
Yep.
All right.
He's doing it well. I mean, it's understandable. Can we flame 100 Thieves now, or what?
Yes. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So obviously 100 Thieves 03. Where's the fault lie? We had a lot of the coaching, the coaching, the what is it? What's the book? The five
dysfunctions of a team.
Dysfunctions. The 5 dysfunctions of a team that might have hit 100 Thieves. I accidentally, because the way that you walked for press was the same entrance and exit as the 100 Thieves locker room. So when I was like leaving to go get a camera or something, 100 Thieves was coming out after the first game. They looked fine. They didn't look rattled. They looked fine. Like I didn't see any 100-yard stairs, same swagger, but didn't seem to quite pay off there. Where do you place this blame here, Dom?
Well, I mean, look, they, regardless of whether it's their fault or the coaching staff's fault, This team has literally never improved at any of the shit that they're bad at the entire fucking time they've been together, right? And they kind of got around this with some of their drafts throughout this playoffs. Like when they played against TL, they played comps that just straight up win team fights that don't have hard conditions that need to be met. They don't need to fucking flank. They literally need to stand behind the Orin and hit whoever's in front. And it's like they could play these ball comps. Enemy team refused to go like poke Corky and things like that. And yeah, they were just able to survive based off that. But this is, for me, the perfect time to make a roster change for 100 Thieves. Like, I understand you're not going to fuck up the roster when they're winning, right? Like, they win a championship, they get to the finals. Okay, that's fine. But now is the time where it's like obvious that you could not win NA doing what you're doing anymore. You weren't even close to really winning this series at all. Like, this was, you got fucking spanked. So you need to make changes to the core of your team that is making these decisions in game that are so fucking terrible every single time. Like, for me, if I was going to make a change, I would go support. I would go support every single time, and I would try to get a support that actually had.
Who the fuck are you going to get?
I would literally
need a native support.
I would put Busio on the team. I would literally just promote him. I don't care if he's only played one split of Academy. He did well in that split of Academy, right? Like, they got to finals of Proving Grounds. Like, that's, I feel like that is where you start. You have to shake things up, because the way that 100 Thieves is, they're so rooted in their philosophy of how the game is supposed to be played and their habits within the game that they're not going to, like, I would be really surprised if they suddenly make leaps and bounds in Summer Split if they keep the same lineup. Are they going to go into the same lineup or the same the next split with the same lineup? And are they going to suddenly know how to play around Barons? Are they going to know how to ward? Are they going to know how to like turn when to start objectives? No, they're going to be the same fucking team. And are you just going to rely on that strategy to win LCS for all of eternity? Are you just going to be like, you know what? It's fine. It's good enough for NA, and that's our aspirations. Like, we're just trying to stack titles here. Maybe EG will choke in the next playoffs, and TL will continue playing like shit, and we'll just win out because we have like generally good early game. Or maybe the meta will fall right into our laps, and someday can just weak side, and Closer can fucking carry games on his specialty picks. Maybe the meta will fall into our laps, and we can win based off that. Are you going to rely on that, or are you actually going to try to make your team better? The way you make your team better is by finding a way to put players on the team that think a different way than the team thinks now.
So Busio is in fact 18 years old, so he is technically eligible to play. I think the question that I have, Dom, is you think that adding a young rookie support is going to drastically change late game shot calling that they need? Because that's usually the domain of more veteran players.
I don't think, well, so it's more like addition by subtraction. I think Huhi not being on the team and like having somebody else in the mix, I think will actually benefit them in the way that they make decisions, because it seems like all their decisions are bad. And when you watch Huhi play, like it's really hard for me to believe that Huhi's not the one calling for a lot of the situations. When you see him just like run past Ever, it's like, there's a mid lane fight, I'm going in. And then he just like set ulti into the team. He just dies instantly and just fucking like the whole game is just lost. It's really hard to believe that somebody else told him to do that. They're like, no. Like, and even when you listen to the comms of the fights, you're like, oh yeah, that's a Huhi call. Like, he wants to fight here all the time. I think that you just need people that are learning the game differently. And I think that just having a new player in there where, you know, when a lineup is shaken up like that, everyone has to kind of like reallocate their like mental resources throughout the game. It's like, who's going to be covering all these different aspects of the game? Okay, like now when we get to objective, how are we doing it? And maybe somebody else picking up the responsibilities of being able to shock all how they want to play certain fights will actually make the team better. I just think that this is like the easiest time for 100 Thieves to make a decision, because look, even if you go to fucking Worlds as like a second or third seed, if you're playing the way you're playing now, it's not going to be worthwhile. You're just going to get eliminated in group stage, because chances are you're going to end up with a Korean and a Chinese team in your group again. You're going to get raw dogged by them. I mean, even though they won a game versus EDG and they can hang their hats on that for all of eternity, that wasn't a game that fucking mattered highly for either team. Like, that was a game where you were already eliminated when you won that EG game. You had no chance of even making it further in the tournament. I just think that your goals have to be higher than just like potentially winning LCS the same way you won it before. Like, you have to actually try to get, like, that's what's going to make NA a good region, is if these teams are just pushing themselves to be the best they can be. And also, I would be confident enough in the rest of the lineup that if you made a change like that, they would be able to carry the weight and at least get you a world spot. So, I mean, that's a change I want to say. I want to see them actually
I mean,
Stop being 100 sins.
I mean, the other thing you can do is like you could mix it up even further. It's not like there aren't up and coming talents that 100 Thieves. I mean, they moved Tenacity up to the main roster. Like, I think that actually did push Someday, who has been streaky like year by year. Some years he's good, some years he's bad.
Now he's good again.
He's good again. There's also Kenvi that's sitting on their academy roster as well. And Tenacity, Kenvi, Busio, these are all guys who are hyped coming up from the amateur scene.
Yeah. I mean, I just wouldn't want to remove Closer because I still believe he's the best player on the team. I know like Vulcan thinks that he's like shit or something, but I think he's like one of the best players in NA.
I agree with that. It's just he was pretty neutralized during this series. And I guess my thing about Closer is like, I'm not always convinced that if he doesn't get an early lead, he actually knows what to do. Right.
Yeah.
And I think
I'm not convinced of that either. But that's why I think that like you put things around him that are going to edge him towards that. And I feel like just if you like, at least with Busio, right? Like, let's say you promoted Busio. If your coaching staff is good, which there supposedly are, right? You have like 3 like former ex-pros, or you have 3 former pros on the coaching staff here, right? You have Mythy, you have Reaper, you have Freeze. Like, at least by starting with a young player, like Busio is somebody who is very, very confident in himself to the point where he's willing to take like criticism. Like, if you tell him he doesn't know something, or if you want to like deliver a concept to him, there's going to be zero ego there. At least from my experience with the guy, there'd be zero ego there. And you could literally feed all your concepts directly to this guy, and his mechanics are good enough to play in the LCS. So I think that right there is just like a solution to this team, where it's like, if you believe your coaching staff is good, now you have a player that can like get all that information. Like, if the team is setting up like improperly, you can take Busio aside. Hey, like, this is what you need to know as a support player in the game, and you can rely on him actually being able to get that information to the team in games. Like, I think that would be a real solution. And I'm not saying that Huhi necessarily is ego, but I would say that Huhi definitely does not get it. Like, it doesn't seem like he understands at this point. So if you do have a good coaching staff and they are able to like point out all these flaws and explain the minor details of what conditions need to be met to make successful Barons happen or make successful Dragons happen, or what the cues are in game that should tell you as to whether you can like fight a dragon or not fight a dragon, he can't get it. So, I mean, maybe Busio is not your guy, right? But I think that would be a way that you can at least have a chance of being better, because right now they're capped, right? Like, this is as good as 100 Thieves will ever be, in my opinion.
I agree.
And things need to change in order to get past that plateau.
I mean, I looked at draft of game number 1. Like, that to me felt like there wasn't success given to these players, or at least easy success given to these players. It was TF has to TP bot, you have to crash that wave, and that's it. You can't fight on the top side. There was not a lot of volatility. That's like a very small window. That felt like I would say an off day towards drafting.
This whole thing was them not knowing how to play out this composition. I mean, they didn't use the TF properly in the laning phase. They botched the dragon fight, which then like supercharged the Jinx. Like, they thought they could get in and get out of the dragon before EG collapsed, which is why they didn't use the Twisted Fate ultimate at the right time, because they thought it was free, and they mistimed it. But even if you make that mistake, then there was the fight at Herald, which was just as egregious. Like, they just didn't know how to use Twisted Fate. Like, they don't know how to play with this champion as a team. And they don't know how to prioritize objectives or how to push advantages. I actually
don't set up the TF in draft either. Like, TF needs volatile lanes so that you're able to actually like make your ports felt. Like, you need that fear in the game from the enemy team, where when TF crashes a wave or when TF has the timing, the whole map is fucking scared because you can go anywhere, right? But like, you're playing it into like a Tom Kench, which is like a relatively safe lane, and then the other one is an Orin, and Orin is notoriously good against TF because obviously you have the W to immune the gold card, and then also you're just a tank, so you're hard to fucking kill in general on TF.
And he's extremely difficult to dive. So I really like the whole, like, there were a bunch of misplays, especially around the first dragon and first herald that were made, but there was just no attempt really to gain any kind of map priority either, which they so desperately needed. So it felt like a really bad misread. And 100 Thieves just really isn't good at like identifying comp win conditions and executing them.
Yep. I mean, they play like solo queue. They play completely like solo queue. But that's the thing, is like, you don't need 5 players to be like strategical geniuses for a team to function. You just need to have like a couple guys that can like have the presence of mind within the game to identify these things, because it's not like these players, like if you say something that makes fucking sense to these players, not like they're going to be like, no, we refuse to fucking win the game easily. Like players are dying to have that information within the game, because most like in 100 Thieves clearly doesn't know what to do. So if anyone actually has the right ideas about what to do, like, people are willing to listen.
Please just tell me what to do.
Yeah, exactly. Players love that shit. Like, the idea that players are like super egotistical and they just won't listen to correct information in game is, I think, one of the most like false narratives that I've seen about competitive play. They're like, dude, a player like Selfmade, he's never going to listen. It's like, no, bro, Selfmade wants, if you tell Selfmade what the fuck to do to win the game, he's down. Like, he is down to fucking win the game. Like, this is what it is. But yeah, I mean, 100 Thieves, I mean, they lost game 1 off the Dragon. I mean, they had pretty good setup mid. Their early game skirmishing is generally good. The way that they play out their leads in the early lane phase is generally good. And then they get to a Dragon or a Herald, or they get to mid game in general. They don't know where to put wards. They don't know what side of the map to control. They don't know how the fight should play out, and they just lose off of it. So yeah, it's rough, but please just make a change. Make a change. It'll be good in the long run. Even if you miss out Worlds slightly and you get like 4th or something in summer, I mean, eventually you have to expect, when your team is this flawed, that other teams are just going to improve and become better than you.
I have one.
I think
I have one.
100 Thieves is pretty safe to go to Worlds this year with this roster. So I actually wouldn't probably change it until the off season if I were them.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, I guess I care more about like actually being good than going to Worlds and just getting my ass kicked. Like, I did.
Yeah,
that before.
I agree with you, but I think that the org itself, Nadeshot likes winning.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, do you prioritize, like, because I think that if you don't make a change now, I think that it's just going to become harder and harder to make a change down the line. I think that like, if you do it at the end of the year, I think that you're then going to like be even more hampered, and like maybe you have to make more changes then at that point. So I feel like this is like an opportune time for it. But that being said, I don't expect them to do anything.
Well, I think with Worlds being an NA, that is something that teams with investors are going to think about a lot, especially if they're already comfortably in one of the top spots. But
especially since it's a lot easier for them to sell sponsorships for Worlds in particular if it's in North America, because they'll be able to do, as Steve said in our conversation with him, one of the reasons why they were able to assemble this roster was because Worlds was an NA, which meant that they could do sponsor activations at the Worlds events live with the fans, which is a huge thing for them. So I would imagine 100 Thieves is very much in the same boat, where it's like, it's very important that they go to Worlds this year in North America for money reasons. And if you just made the finals and you were the favorite going into the finals, why would you change anything? Why would you take that risk?
Because you're actually fucking bad, and you should know that you're really fucking bad.
I'm with you, but you just have to be less bad than some other NA teams, right?
To the other teams,
I would be scared. Like, I think that there's a chance that 100 Thieves just like, I could see them being worse than, I guess the only real one would be Cloud9, right? Like, that's the one that you're scared of. I mean, dude, I could see Blabber, and I don't know what Cloud9's doing with their roster, but if they make some changes, like, I could see them being a better team. I mean, they've essentially been a better team than 100 Thieves through all of the history outside of these last 2 splits.
So you were focusing on Huhi down on the bottom side, which I think is fair with the logic that you used in terms of shot calling. But for me, what about this pool of mid laners that are sitting here and that you could slot in a Jensen, slot in a Jizuke for Abadage, who has also...
Abadage.
I mean, I just don't think that would make... I mean, mid laners are generally like not the guys that are... directing the entire team. You know, like
I agree.
It's normally
I agree.
a support type of thing or a jungle type of thing that's going to be like, yo, this is like how we got to fight. Like, this is what we have to do in this next one, because they have more time to think about it. Like, normally mid laners are just going to be like, they're doing their job. So, yeah.
But it's those two guys. It's Jizuke and Jensen that are I feel like
I've never
those
seen
two
Jensen
guys
as like a leader type where he's like really like, I think that Jensen just wants to like fucking play well himself, you know, get leads and play things well individually. I don't see him as like somebody who wants to take on like the burden of like fixing a team.
Okay. Just
I mean, I don't know if he's ever had to do that in his entire career, right? Like, think about the teams that he's actually played with, right? He played with the original Cloud9, then he played with Cloud9 forever, and then he played with like the superstar TL. Like, what? When has he actually had to be a, you know, like, I'm gonna bring up these guys, I'm gonna like teach these guys how to play the game? This doesn't seem like a Jensen thing.
Okay, there you have it. All right, guys. Not that many series, but definitely a lot of thoughts that we had here going on
Let's talk about
that's what we
MSI
did
as well, and these are important finals, right? And
Yep.
you have to go around and deconstruct the false narratives that are being peddled by literally everybody, because I guess they lost their ability to critically think. It's incredible how everyone affiliated with the LCS just lost their ability to actually think about previous NA talent and current NA talent and just completely ride or die with this insane narrative. Like,
Well, I mean, I think it's just that they're so hyped up. They're so hyped up that, you know, they can't even like separate themselves from the emotions right now. Like, just give them a couple weeks,
yes.
and then they'll.
I would say yes.
come around.
It was. I think it was because, again, how crazy that audience was for EG.
It was just exciting watching EG win. I liked watching EG win. I wanted to see them win. Like, it was probably the best result that could have happened. Like, in my mind, I think it's the most. It'd be the result that made me the happiest out of the two other teams. Unless TL was just looking really fucking good and like they were shitting on teams so hard that you're like, damn, this team is gonna like actually fucking win MSI or some shit, or they're gonna make it to finals of MSI. Unless I felt like that about TL, this is the result that I'd rather have over anything else. Like, at least I'm excited for them. Some new players get to fucking win. Maybe it motivates the rest of the league to actually get better. Like, the way that EG won, the fact that they. Like, it's not like 100 Thieves played that much worse than they normally play. They just played the fucking way they always play, and they just get away with it because it's NA. But EG punished it. They're like, fuck, you're actually not that good. We're just better than you. Like, and they just won. I like that shit. Like, that was good. But
yeah, I think it was a combination where, you know, everybody just got super high from it being like a fucking in-person event and in a stadium for the first time again. So like the hype, I think people just like bought into the hype way too much.
All right, we have our comment of the week from our fans because we always try to get some fan interaction here. This one I think we touched on a little bit here in terms of format for MSI, but this is more about the splits. This comes from Bloodbow Games. Until splits and playoffs are standardized across the world, more international events take place. Weaker regions will continue to fall against the LCK and LPL. Look at StarCraft 2. The greatest player in the world right now is Cyril, and he destroyed every single Korean at IEM Katowice. Only a single Korean made it into the semifinals. To compete to the best, you have to play as much as the best.
Shut the fuck up, dude. Here's the problem with that logic. All of the teams in Korea pulled their support for StarCraft 2, guys. Like, they don't have the team support infrastructure that they used to have that made these teams great. Like, they don't have players anymore because StarCraft 2 has dropped off in popularity. And here's the thing about StarCraft. It is actually more popular in the West these days, thanks to Tasteless and Artosis, than it is within Korea itself. In fact, Brood War is more popular in Korea than StarCraft 2 is. So is Cyril a great player? Yes. It is not surprising that the same time all of the great Korean orgs pulled their support was exactly the same point in time when Western players started succeeding.
Not structure, but infrastructure.
And, you know, people's interest in the game in Korea as well, right? A lot of players who came from Brood War have literally gone back to playing Brood War.
Well, that's sick.
It is.
Well, I mean, look, it's good that you follow the StarCraft scene, because I would have been like, oh, really? I don't know how that happened. Like, I have no idea what the explanation would be. So you just get to flame the fans. Nice.
I mean, like,
I like how that's our fan interaction. dGon's like, we love fan interaction, and MonteCristo's like,
We do
shut
love
the
fan
fuck
interaction.
up. Shut the fuck. Stop fucking commenting.
Was that not amazing? Was that not amazing for everyone?
This guy is the same dude who's like, NA has talent now for EG. That's like it's the same shit, guys. Like, you have to look at the whole picture. Okay. And again, yes, Cyril is a great player. Like, there are great Western players in StarCraft 2 now, but they have risen from the ashes of the great Korean esports teams that were running rosters. Like, you know, Jin Air held out for a long time in StarCraft 2, longer than many of the other teams that were involved in the scene. But there just isn't money to pay these players' salaries now. And they're older and they have to go do their military service or move on with their fucking lives, right?
If you want to be flamed by Monty or Dom or myself, make sure to comment on this video, and you will have the opportunity to have your comment highlighted like this one as the comment of the week. All right, cool. Last thing to do, everyone's favorite part of the show. It's God or Dog. Dom, you're up first. Who do you got as your God? Let's start positive.
Impact. I think Impact played really well.
Yep.
If I'm going NA, I would go Impact. If I would go LPL, I would go Bin. But I'll go Impact for this. I thought he really just performed the entirety of fucking playoffs. Honestly, like, this guy he just knows how to fucking win, man. He's always better than you think
he'll be. Peaks at the right time, beautifully every time.
Yep.
The Mordekaiser pick was something that he prepped the team on. He was like, I haven't practiced it, but I know this can work from like 2 years ago. He said that in the press conference. Pretty cool. Monty, who do you got?
I go Xiaohu. I think I really like watching Xiaohu play the map. I think if you watch these games, you see why Vex is a very good pick in a lot of Eastern regions. Like, the ability to hit those long range skill shots can absolutely change games. Like, him picking on Jackie Love was just glorious in the last game, in game 5. Being able to 100-0 these carries in the back line is really fun to watch on a 2-item Vex. So I think he did really well in terms of enabling his team, finding the right targets and carrying, especially in game 5 of the series. So I thought that was really, really fun to watch.
All right, you guys did take my God. Thank goodness. Let's give it to the master plan, the man with the master plan of revenge. Let's give it to Vulcan, who I think played really well to keep Danny safe and got to do it the way that he wanted to do it, against Closer, against Cloud9, beating Core JJ. So congrats to Vulcan and the rest of the squad.
The real God is EG's coaching staff. That's my take. EG's coaching staff is the God pulling the strings behind the scenes, like creating the masterpiece, right?
The God is Peter Dunn, right? Like, he fucking scouted the players. He got the whole staff there. He's not even on stage. He's just literally like, he's the fucking real evil genius. He's like, all right, what's the fucking plan? How are we going to make this go for? Think about how crazy that is. No one has ever really fucking done that in NA. They took a team and got them to a championship that wasn't even in the league 3 years ago. Or I guess 3.5 years ago. Well, no, 3 years ago.
And they used a 17-year-old Fortnite pro.
Yep. He put it all together. I mean, he's not going to get the credit he deserves, but
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. I'm on my EG coaching staff celebration parade right now. So I think they deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah, and he's just not the type of guy to take praise, right? He's like, yeah, look at all my players. They're like, look at when they won. Look at what he says. He's like, first I want to thank these guys, and these guys. Like, they should all thank you, motherfucker. Like, you're the one that put this shit together. Like, these guys are not champions without you. That's for sure.
Yeah, he wasn't even at the press conference. He let it. He gave it to all the other coaches, all the other staff. The Nicole Jameson Lapointe Jameson was there.
Yeah, fuck British people. They're too humbled. He needs to get some classic American arrogance if he's going to be in NA.
Yep.
Yeah. Who you got as dogs? Let's go. You first, Monty.
I mean, it's got to be Rich, right? I actually like don't know how it could be anybody else. I guess you could pick on some of the 100 Thieves guys a little bit, or Team Liquid's massive underperformance, but I mean, that was a big int. That was a fabulous int by Rich. So I think it has to be that way. It's even more embarrassing because Rookie draws so many bans and Rich still runs it down. Like you can't. It is not allowed to run it down that hard when one of your teammates is being mega target banned for the entire playoffs. That's completely unacceptable, and also very disappointing considering he was a lot better in many of the regular season games that I watched him.
You were on the.
I didn't like him last year, but I was. My opinion on Rich was starting to turn around, and then this happened.
3-20. Dom, who you got?
So my dog, it was tough to decide between two, but my dog is actually going to be Hansama.
Ooh.
Yeah, was somebody we've actually had on the jungle before. So I guess I'm just burning all the bridges that I can while we're still on this show.
Jeez.
So. Yeah, I mean, I think Hansama is so much better than he showed. I mean, you're just in a situation where, like, where's the Hansama that used to just fucking raw dog everyone in bot lane? He's got the support to do it. Where are the Draven picks, man? Like, they're fucking blinding Jinx. Just do what fucking Jackie Love did. Pull out the Draven, just fist him a fucking game. Then it's getting banned 1, 2, 3 for the rest of the series. Nice. You've opened up a ban for your team. Like, come on. Like, I don't want to see him be a fucking the import that just becomes like, I got third place, guys. Like, I got third place just being a good teammate. Like, no, bro, put your fucking dick all up in the rest of these and then 80 carries. Like, they don't deserve to be in the same fucking lane as you.
And just so people understand the lingo, being a dog is bad, but being a raw dog is good. Okay.
Yeah.
My dog, not a raw dog, is the piece of shit coder on the back end that decided to have 0.375 health regen every minute, so that when you smite, it goes up just that little bit as the clock turns 1 minute. Santorin just, I mean, he tweeted it out. And
you know what I heard?
Let me get more flame in, actually. Let me get more fucking flame. All right.
That's so stupid, though. Yeah.
Here's a fucking person, bro. Command attack this motherfucker, dude.
Oh,
this
TJ
guy has the nerve. I can't fucking stand this guy. So this is just one of those like typical elitist person, like never played a fucking.
He's a former mid laner for University of Illinois, I
mid
believe.
laner or some shit like whatever. Okay, I don't care about it, but it's like this typical guy who comes out, doesn't even play jungle, and he's like, actually, this shows just a knowledge gap on Santorin's part, where it's like, there's a limited amount of things that you're going to be considering.
Are you really looking at the game timer?
Dude, I know this interaction. I can prove I know that I know the interaction because I said it immediately when it happened in fucking game. I play jungle at a professional level, and there's so many things you're going to look at before you actually start considering game timer. Because in reality, game timer won't really matter. Like, you should be more focused on, like, do I actually need to smite perfectly at 900, or can I wait until it hits like 700, like 600, something like that? Am I going to give this guy no chance? Like, it's not like he has Jinx ult up. We know he doesn't have Jinx ult up. We're just going to smite at a better time. Like, that's a better criticism. The criticism of like, oh, well, it's a game knowledge thing. You didn't look at the fucking game timer. It's like, fuck you, bro. Like, you would never be looking at the game timer here. When you're a pro jungler, number one, you're going to be looking at the fucking health of Baron, right? Number two, you're going to look at your fucking positioning to make sure you're not going to fucking die before the Baron dies.
And you're also using your mouth to talk to your team about when to put damage into the Baron. So you're trying to coordinate your team around the objective as well.
There's no fucking world. And then the third thing would be that you're going to be actually looking at the feel of it and looking at the bar of health, not just the number, the bar of health, to know when it looks like you should smite, because a lot of these junglers will end up smiting based off instinct, because generally if you're a professional player, you train your instincts to be really fucking good in those situations. So the idea that you should be looking at the timer there, I think, is incorrect, even if you know it. Like, I know that fucking interaction. I'm not looking at the fucking timer in game. I'm doing all the other factors that are 100 times more relevant, are going to be more crucial to landing a perfect smite in game than that fucking shit. So get out of here with those contrarian takes. Oh, you need to be looking at the timer. It's like, you don't know shit. Stop talking, please.
Also, dGon, I'm curious if you know this because you have Wild Rift expertise. But what I heard was that they actually took that out of Wild Rift already, where if you are engaged with the Baron and the clock ticks, it doesn't actually do that anymore.
Oh, shit. I do not have that deep cut knowledge because that feels like such an arbitrary thing that I would need to know. As
I have not confirmed this.
host
That is what I heard. Is that problem has already been removed from Wild Rift.
I'm checking. Patch history. Okay, here we go. We're at the patch history. Okay, something got removed.
It may have never been included in the game in the first place, to be fair. So I don't know if
that
the
is
patch
true
history
as
will
well.
necessarily tell you that. But
Okay, all right. I will get back to you again.
comment if
by
you
that
know
time.
if this is true or not. I've played one game of Wild Rift ever, so I cannot confirm, and I'm not going to confirm because I don't actually care that much because it should be removed from League of Legends anyway.
All right, a full episode here. I love it. It was great. Now what are you gonna do now, Dom? League is slowing down. Where are people gonna find you this week?
Miami.
I'm taking a vacation, like I said.
So we were talking about last time.
Nope.
I forgot.
I'm still taking that vacation. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm fortunate enough at this point in my career to like have at least some form of viewership, even if I do take breaks, and I use it wisely because I think that in general, over streaming ends up making your content worse. Like when you start grinding to the point where you fucking hate being there, you're just not going to be as entertaining. So I actually really value my breaks, and I think it actually makes me a better content creator. So yeah, I will be taking about 9 days off, and then I will play some solo queue on stream, do some MSI prep, then do MSI.
Boom. Monty, where will people find you this week? Will people find you this week?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I think one of the things I'm going to do during this break is change my streaming setup in my garage so I'm not against a white wall with a pole coming out of my head anymore. So I anticipate that the giant garage that I use, a tiny amount of, even though I have a huge green screen in here, I'm going to start doing some work in here and make it nice and get like a couch setup going and move my desk around, spruce it up. So I think that's what I'm gonna spend some of this time doing. Also working on some other projects.
Awesome, exciting,
secret work
mysterious
projects that are not.
Yeah, I was about to say
right now.
mysterious.
I do see. This is the thing: is that a lot of my work these days is in consulting in the industry, and so you guys just don't ever get to see or know about that. Sometimes I just randomly appear at a Rainbow Six major. Not saying it will or will not happen in May, but who knows?
Okay, we'll keep it peeled for May. We're going to be taking a little bit of a break here on The Jungle. Our next episode will be Monday, May 16th, or I guess that's when we'll record. So it'll come out the week of May 16th as the group stage of MSI concludes.
Because there's no point doing previews for games that we almost know the results of all of them already.
Yeah, you can catch me this weekend over at Wild Rift. Do a Wild Rift at Mall of America. Super fun. And then after that,
you can ask if they fix that interaction.
I will ask. I thought that's why you asked me. I honestly thought that's why you asked me.
I just know you've done a lot of it. So the timing is great. So you will provide the answer for us on the next episode. Fabulous.
That's right. I got 2 weeks to do some homework and research for that one. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. It was a lot of fun. A great spring split in the books. MSI with all of its glory and grandeur will go on and we'll cover after the group stage. Until then, we'll catch you guys later. Be safe. See ya.